Since we have heard from the lawyers, what's the stupidest reason you have been asked to sue for? What was the outcome? Not a lawyer, but I'm a client manager at a law firm. I once had a man call and trying to sue the local Popeyes because they gave him a large order of wings instead of a small order of thighs. He had witnesses to prove it and everything. Lady calls 911 and says the dump truck in front of her is spilling gravel all over the road and her truck. I ask her if any damage is done to her vehicle and she says she doesn't know. Officers find the dump truck, follow it about a mile and don't observe any gravel spilling out. They pull it over anyway to get driver company insurance information, assuming she wants to make a damage to property report. I ask the lady to stop with the officers or bring her vehicle to the police department so they can see the damage and do the report for her insurance company. She tells me she doesn't have time because her daughter is late for a singing lesson. 2 weeks later, after a hailstorm, she come to the PD to make a report for damage, but she is driving another vehicle. She claims her truck is already at the repair shop and the estimate is $3,000. Officer tells her he can't make a report for damage without seeing the vehicle, but he goes ahead and makes an information-only report to appease her. Now she is trying to sue the PD because the officer won't testify that the dump truck is the cause of the damage. One of my friends had to deal with a woman trying to sue her local council because she tripped over a pigeon. Guy sued the creators of Budweiser because he suffered emotional distress, mental injury, and financial loss because he didn't nail beautiful women like the adverts promised, thus causing him to consume more and more. The judge basically told him to take it like a man like the rest of us borderline alcoholics do. A guy sued Axe body spray for the same thing. He had a much stronger case. My friend had a client who wanted to sue his parents for emotional abuse. That abuse consisted of giving the client a name he didn't like. It's not even as if the name was one of those ridiculous ones. It was perfectly ordinary, if a little uncommon in my country. Needless to say, my friend didn't agree to represent the guy. I could understand some people wanting to take legal action for this. Life ain't easy for a boy named Sue. My fire tech teacher has a great story he told me of. He worked with the fire department, and they're called to a car accident. The first car is smashed in, and they get the jaws of life. Open it up. One man survived, and his 9-month pregnant wife was decapitated. Another firefighter proceeded to do an emergency C-section and save the man's baby. Well, after finding out he was out of scope for doing so, the man sued the firefighter. He sued him for saving his only child. Worked in law firms for 10 plus years. Heard a great true story where a guy comes in with his wife and teen daughter to discuss defense against a claim that the dad fiddles the daughter. The guy basically says, "It's my daughter. I can do what I want with her." The mum says nothing. The lawyer was disbarred for vaulting the table and punching the dad. There should be a one free punch clause for lawyers and doctors. Heck, everybody should get one free punch. My sister was sued by this elderly woman. It was her senior year of high school toward the end of the year. She's leaving school and takes a right onto the road. Her and the elderly woman got into a car accident and the police officer found my sister at fault. Within a year later my parents learned that the old lady is suing them for doctor appointments and such. When it comes to the case, we find that the elderly woman had been taking prescription pills that affect motor skills. Worst case, the pills were in the daughter's name, not hers. Not only that, but the old lady had been speeding in a 35-mile-per-hour school zone. She actually admitted to it. Parents didn't have to pay a dime to the old broad. Not a lawyer, but I did get sued once for child support. My deadbeat dad ex-husband called after 5 years of no contact and no financial support. He's dying. Kids see him. The younger one wants to stay with him for a while. She stays with him and his new wife and daughter. They live in the same town. He miraculously gets better. 4 months in, I get a letter from his lawyer for child support. Says I'm deadbeat mom. He's had her for years without any support from me. I walk into the remediation meeting with school and medical records, divorce support papers, history of his non-payment through the state, and of course, proof of his other daughter who still lived with me. Apparently he forgot to tell his lawyers a few things. Younger daughter is dumped back on my doorstep the next day and I never hear from his lawyer again. That was over 20 years ago, and he's still alive. When I played football, there was a mom who tried suing the school for discrimination because they never let him play. She said it was because he was black. Almost our entire starting lineup was black, and all but 2 coaches were black. But her son's going to go big, didn't you know that? Obviously it can't be because he isn't as good as the other players. This is only a step beyond what's normal in youth sports. I could go on all day, but I'll limit it to the 2 most egregious. I'm a retired public defender. Before I started with the PD's office, I worked briefly for a private firm where I encountered these 2 cases. One, a single parent mom had to fly to an out-of-town training for her job. Deadbeat dad wasn't paying child support because he claimed he couldn't find a job. This will be important later. Mom left her 4-year-old daughter with her sister, the child's aunt. While mom's away, the aunt takes the girl to Chuck E. Cheese. A repairman at Chuck E. Cheese opens an access panel to repair the pulleys that operated the giant puppets. Repairman goes in back to get a tool and leaves the access panel open. The girl puts her hand in the opening and her fingers are severed. She is rushed to the ER, and the docs want a parent. With mom out of town, deadbeat dad is called in. After consulting with the docs, and with the girl in the ER, deadbeat dad calls the law firm from the waiting room and wants to know if he has a case. He wants to include lost wages as part of his damages. I left for public defender soon after, and I don't know how this case ever resolved. A 28-year-old man marries a 16-year-old girl, much to the dismay of her parents. In this state, a 16-year-old can marry without parental consent if she is pregnant, which she was. He proves to be a chronically unemployed and abusive husband. The mother-in-law convinces the girl to take the baby and come home. With her gone, husband of the year goes out, finds a high school girl. The wife changes her mind and returns to her husband with the baby. Months later, husband is served in a paternity suit from the high school girl he was with during wife's absence. He makes an appointment with me and wants to know if I can force the mother-in-law to pay the child support to high school girl, since it was the mother-in-law's fault that wife wasn't there for him to have sex with, thereby forcing him to seek out high school girl. We didn't take the case. I would just quietly say, you are a terrible human being. I hope you live for eternity that you may learn to regret your actions. Now get out of my office. Not a lawyer, but my dad had a man try to sue him for a tree falling on his car. My dad had sold him a house about a decade before and there was a tree next to the driveway. Well, the man decided to cut the tree down, but being the idiot he was, it fell on his car. So logically it was my dad's fault and he sued him. Please tell me that the guy who cut down the tree didn't win. My boss was holding a fundraiser for our city's art museum. He and his family over the years have given this museum cash and art gifts worth approx 40 million. During the fundraiser, one of the employees trips on a stone walkway and sues my boss for 2 million. What the employee failed to understand is that because of his multi-million-dollar art collection, the boss has security cameras covering every inch of his property. They showed that the fall was staged and the plaintiff had to pay my boss's legal fees. The museum refused to fire the employee because she was banging the director, and for that they will never get another donation from his family again. This family's art collection travels to museums around the globe and is currently valued in the low to mid 9 figures. I am sure my lawyer thinks it's a bit ridiculous a girl physically attacked me over a $1 burrito while she was blackout drunk and is now trying to press assault and battery against me when all I did was shove her back a few times in self-defense. I saw one here a while ago about from some guy whose dad is a doctor. He performed some form of shoulder surgery on a woman, letting her maintain use of her arm. A few years later she decided to sue him because she got throat cancer and the surgery enabled her to continue smoking. WTF America? Why are you guys so obsessed with suing? If I was the judge, I would have agreed that the surgeon was at fault and demanded that he amputate the arm as compensation. Not optional amputation, compulsory amputation. There was a case in Australia recently where a woman was paid a workers' compensation claim after a lamp fell on her head as she was having sex while on a work trip. Let me take the opportunity to say this: if you think you might have the case, talk to a lawyer about it. The amount of seemingly obnoxious cases that win, or settle, is surprisingly high, but so are the number of legitimate slam dunk cases that never get pursued. I see Redditors dismissing the idea of talking with lawyers all of the time. Contrary to popular Belief lawyers don't start billing the second you walk in the door. I turn down at least 2 meritless cases every day. I'm convinced that the media, friend of a friend stories, and people that can't differentiate between getting nastygrams and getting sued blow the number of frivolous lawsuits that actually go to court out of proportion. It takes one stupid case among 50 states and 300+ million people to make headlines every few months for Americans to think lawsuits are out of control. Moreover, journalists and laypeople know far less about the law than they think. It leads to many ostensibly frivolous cases being misportrayed in the media. See for example, Liebeck v. McDonald's. Almost all attorneys that pursue tort claims work on contingency and front all costs. Way more than you think after depositions and expert witnesses. Med mal cases can run 6 figures. You'll lose a surprising amount of money by signing stupid cases. That said, the dumbest call I've gotten is tied between 1. A mental patient calling because he didn't sexually satisfy his girlfriend. I told him that it'd be his girlfriend's claim. And 2. A redneck calling because he wanted his old teeth back that a dentist extracted. Slip and fall cases have the worst reputation, but are almost always awful. It's a rare day and a magical set of facts where I sign those up. In order to win, one typically needs a business to have 1. Some sort of defect on their property. 2. The business needs to have known about the defect and neglected to correct it, or the defect was there so long they should have known. For example, with reasonable property inspections. 3. The defect isn't open and obvious. If you have all of those, and someone injures themselves, I think a suit is reasonable. If you're profiting by inviting people on your property, you have a duty to not keep your property in negligent disrepair. And, at least in my jurisdiction, jury verdicts and settlements are much less than the media makes you think. Wage loss, medical bills, other economic expenses they incurred, and pain and suffering, not that much. Jobless people that sue don't make that much money because they have no wage loss. Those famous astronomical verdicts result from punitive damages, which only occur when the business was being particularly egregious. Scandals, cover-ups, etc. See the McDonald's case again. I'm on the defense side of the house, but I saw a township get sued because 3 of the township supervisors had lunch together and didn't invite the plaintiff. He claimed that it was in violation of sunshine in government laws. He had no evidence of any wrongdoing, and filed on his own behalf because no actual lawyer would take his case. I read his complaint. Part of it. It was 128 pages long and quoted, among other things, the Declaration of Independence and Patrick Henry, at length. The judge tossed it out and entered an order prohibiting him from suing the township again unless he had an actual lawyer or the court's permission. My uncle used to own a sawmill in southern Mass. Some lady came by and came into his property even though the gate was closed and he didn't come out when she rang the bell. She then slipped in water and fell, breaking her arm. She then sued him for damages and won an almost $1 million case against him. It's complete insanity and my uncle had to pay with almost his entire life savings. He's a veteran suffering with PTSD now in financial ruin, still dealing with payments almost 10 years later. He had to sell his sawmill and now lives in a trailer in NH. If this is true, the jury had to find reason to assign punitive damages. I doubt a broken arm could be worth $1 million in actual damages. A lady tried suing a train company because her husband was killed by one of their trains. Sounds responsible? Number. Her husband came to a stop at the crossing, then decided to drive his truck through the barrier and was hit by the train. In the process, parts of this man went flying into Kingdom Come and landed on some lady's windshield. She sued the man's family for damages and because it traumatized her. You have been visited by the beach doggo. You shall be blessed with good weather all summer and you subscribe to Updoot Reddit. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check out another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.